Namaste, hello, and welcome everyone to the third day of the Great India Festival, 10th year grand celebration. I'm Ashani Singh, your MC for a part of today's event. I hope you're all doing well this morning. Because of the province's limiting restrictions, we are unable to join together in person to celebrate the 10th year of the Great India Festival. However, our wonderful set of team members have put in a lot of effort for this virtual event, and we hope that you enjoy it. This morning, we also celebrate India winning another gold medal in the Olympic Tokyo Games. Neeraj Chopra, with his brilliant efforts, has won India a gold in javelin throw. And of course, Canada is also doing just as great with 6 gold, 6 silver, and 11 bronze medals. Before we get started, I would like to cordially invite Sri Dheeraj Agarwal and Srimati Aruvita Agarwal to light the lamp.
Namaste everyone. Thank you to the Great India Festival for giving us this honor of lighting the lamp. Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace.
Thank you for this wonderful gesture. Before we get started with our programs today, I would like to take a moment to thank our partners and sponsors for their generous contributions for this event. Firstly, thank you to our festival partners, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, the City of Ottawa, the High Commission of India, and the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, New Delhi. Thank you to our gold sponsors, Phoenix Homes and Kilika IT Solutions. Thank you to our cuisine partners, Thali, Coconut Lagoon, and Curry Kebab House. Thank you to our cultural partners, Saraswati School of Dance and Music and Canadian Center of for Mindful Habitats. Thank you to our community partner, the Indo-Canadian Community Center. And finally, thanks to our media partners, CBC Ottawa and CKCU FM 93.1. Now let's watch together a small presentation for our sponsors. Now that we have extended our thanks to our great partners and sponsors, let's move on to our first program of this morning. The word yoga is derived from the Sanskrit root yuj, which means to join or to unite. Yoga is a discipline which focuses on bringing harmony between the mind and body. According to the Indian yoga traditions, sound is sacred and has healing vibrations. Sound is believed to be one of the most powerful forces, so chanting during yoga deepens concentration, calms the mind, and also improves self-awareness. Chanting is an ancient spiritual practice that exists in most religions. One of the most popular and most frequently chanted mantras in yoga is the supreme mantra known as Om. With that being said, let me introduce you all to our presenter for this program, Srimati Mekhala Desikachar. She is a student of TKV Desikachar. She finished her undergraduate bachelor studies in electrical engineering in India, then pursued her master's in the US in 2003. She learned chanting and yoga from her father and other senior teachers of Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. Without further ado, here's Srimati Mekhala Achar.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Ishani. I'm also very happy to be part of this celebration of the Great Indian Festival. I just want to let all the people know that I'm not well a little bit. My kids were not well this week. And so taking care of them, I'm also not feeling well. So I may not be able to chant very loudly, but I'm going to give it my all best. And also, as Ishani was saying today, I was also very happy that India has also won an Olympic gold medal. So it's another reason to celebrate. So, just like the many other events and the programs that have happened in the Great Indian Festival, like dance, music, and other forms of art, music, and everything, this Vedadhyanam, or what we call in English as Vedic chanting, also is part of the Guru Shishya Parampara, where the teaching is passed on from the teacher to the student, and then the student passes on to their students, and so on. And so the role of the teacher and the relationship between the teacher and the student is very important in all of these schools, like Bharatanatyam, music, archery, yoga, Vedadhyanam, and so on. So I would like to start with a chant, respecting all the teachers, not only my teacher, but his teacher, and all the teachers before him. Gurubhyastat gurubhyascha namo vakamadhimahe वृणीमहे च तत्राद्यौ दम्पती जगतां पति श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः. Also, I would like to recite, this is a composition by one of the greatest philosophers of India, Adi Shankaracharya. This is a verse that he has composed on how important teacher is and how important it is to respect the teacher. So he, in this verse, he says that you may be an expert in everything, you may have all the riches, you may be the king or the greatest person on earth, but if you do not respect the teacher, then all of that is of no value. So just a few verses, I'm not going to recite the entire thing, just a few verses. So this is not, this is a composition by Adi Shankara, this is not part of the Vedas. Shariram surupam tatha va kalatram यशश्चारुचित्रं धनं मेरुतुल्यं मनश्चेन्न लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं कलत्रं धनं पुत्रपौत्रादि सर्वं गृहं बान्धवाः सर्वमेतद्धिजातम् मनश्चेन्न लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं विदेशेषु मान्यस्वदेशेषु धन्यः सदाचारवृत्तेषु मत्तो न चान्यः मनश्चेन्न लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं न भोगेन योगेन वा वाजिराजौ न कान्तामुखेनैव वित्तेषु चित्तम् मनश्चेन्न लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् अरण्येन वा स्वस्य गेहेन कार्ये न देहे मनो वर्तते मे त्वनर्घ्ये मनश्चेन्न लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् गुरोरष्टकञ्यः पठेत् पुण्यदेही यतिर्भूपतिर्ब्रह्मचारी च गेही लभेत् वाञ्छितार्थं पदं ब्रह्म संज्ञम् गुरोरुक्तवाक्ये मनो यस्य लग्नम्. So you must have noticed that in this verse, tatah king, tatah king, tatah king, tatah king gets repeated. It says that what's the use, what's the use, what's the use if you do not have respect for your teacher or you do not remember that you are what you are because of him. So I'm just going to show you my teacher. This is my father, my teacher, T.K. Desikachar. And his teacher is also his father, Shri P. Krishnamacharya, is one of the what I would say is father of modern yoga or application of yoga for therapeutic needs. And many of the greatest yoga teachers who brought yoga to the West, like Mr. B.K. Iyengar, Mr. Patabi Joyce, my father, Mr. T.K. Desikachar, and Mrs. Indira Devi, they are all students of my grandfather, T.K. Desikachar. So I would actually like to talk about them at length, but before I would do that in between, where we can take a break. So I'll just start with some chant and then we will do some interactive chanting also. So this is a very famous chanting, and I'm sure many of you will be aware of it. This is just to say, I'm reciting this at the beginning of the session so that this chanting pretty much says that let us relish this interaction together, let us learn from this interaction, and let us also get strength from this interaction. So I'm here interacting with so many people here today. So I'm just going to chant this. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. And also a small chant for purifying all of us to have a balance. Om Pranapana samaname Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Vangmanashchakshusrotrajihva Ghranarato Buddhyakuti Sankalpame Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Shirah Panipada-parshva-prishtodhara Janghashishno-pasthapaya-vo me Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Tvakcharmamagum sarudhiramedosthimajjame Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Shabdasparsharooparasagandhame Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Prithvyaptejo Vaivakashame Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Annamaya Pranamaya Manomaya Vijnanamaya Anandamaya me Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagguswaha. Om Vivityai Swaha. Om Ghashotkaya Swaha. Om Uttishta Purusha Hare लोहितपिङ्गलाक्षि देहि देहि ददापैता मे शुद्ध्यन्तान् ज्योतिरहं विरजा विपाप्मा भूया सद्गु स्वाहा ॐ स्वाहा. That was for the purification of all parts of our body, mind, and at every level. So I would like to start the interactive chanting, but before we start the interactive chanting, I would just like to give a brief intro to what are Vedas and what does Veda Dhyanam means, and then the relevance, and this will hold relevance when we do the interactive chanting. So Veda comes from the root word in Sanskrit called Vid, to know. That means that what it implies here, that it is a source of knowledge, not just small, any small one. It's so huge that ancient people say, and even my teacher would say, that if you have any question and you would like to find an answer, the answer will be there in the Vedas. So that is the vastness of this source of knowledge. And the other aspect of the Vedas is that it's composed in Sanskrit and there are certain rules to be followed when we are reciting the Vedas. The definition of Veda Dhyanam, or what we call as Vedic chanting, is Guru Ucharanam, Anu Ucharanam, Adhyayanam. This means that the Guru recites and you repeat what the Guru says exactly. That is Adhyayanam. So what do you mean by exactly? Is you have to watch how long each sound is recited, where he takes a pause, where he or she or takes a pause, and you have to follow exactly that. So there are certain rules of Vedic chanting, like pronunciation, how the rules of Vedic chanting is already set in the Veda Dhyanam. So there are a couple of rules. I'm just briefly saying the pronunciation, the rhythm, the going up and down, the note of going up and down, and then the flow where you have to take a pause, and then things like that have to be followed. So that is why if you see in the ancient times, when the teacher recites once, the student repeats it twice. So until the student gets it right, the teacher will not go to a new line. This was a way they made sure that there was no adulteration in the way the teaching was transmitted. So that is why the teaching have stayed as it is for such a long time in spite of so many interventions from other countries. So memorization was a very important part of that. So that's why it had to be exactly as how the teacher says. And the other reason why it has to be recited exactly is the concept of vibration, the role of sound, and the vibration associated with it. And the use of Sanskrit plays a very important role in this, because the Sanskrit sounds have specific, very unique vibrations associated with them, and the combination of sounds in the formation of these words give this vibration that serve a particular purpose. So if you do not recite the verse in that particular way, then the vibration, the vibrational effect will not be there, and you may not receive the benefit for which it was composed. So there are a lot of healing chants that are composed this way, and then other chants are also there which have information, but many of the chants that have the benefit of healing and certain purposes associated with that, and which is why the importance of reciting as it is, or as how the teacher says, holds great relevance. So on that note, we will start with a small interactive chanting. I'm going to use a very simple verse. So I will recite it once, and I would like the attendees to recite it twice, and I'll give you the time for it twice. So we will start with a very simple chant. The Vedas not contain a lot of information. They talk a lot about the forces of nature, creation, science, mathematics, and philosophies, and then even warfare, political administration, and so on. Like I can talk in length about that. But the chant that I have picked now is in praise of the sun. So he's a most important source of energy for us. Nothing in life will move without the energy of the sun. This is a very small verse. I have shortened it. So I will recite it once, and I would request the attendees to recite it twice, and I will give you the time for that. Om Hram Om Hrim Om Hroom Om Hraim Om Hraum Om Hraha Okay, now I'll make it a little longer. I'll combine two of these lines. Om Hram Hrim Om Hrim Hroom Om Hroom Hraim Om Hraim Hraum Om Hraum Hraha Okay. Now we will move on to chanting for good health. So we want good health. So we ask for good health. And I would also like the attendees to repeat this twice. Ayurdhehi pranandhehi. Apanandhehi. Vyanandhehi. Chakshurdhehi. Shrotrandhehi. Manodhehi. Vachandhehi. Atmanandhehi. Pratishthandhehi. Mandhehi. Maithehi. All right. And I wanted to ask you, Shani, how do I see the participants? I'm not able to see them on the screen. I'm not very good at Zoom.
Participants, you can click view on the top right corner.
Oh, okay. And then click the gallery.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I still see only you and me. So
It's probably because they have their cameras off.
that's right. All right.
You would not be able to see the audience. This is the webinar, not the normal meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm not good at all these. All right. So I was just feeling that, if I gave them enough time to repeat, or so I was just wondering. All right. So I would like to talk a little more. After, like I said, I would like to talk a little more about Vedas and also about my teacher, and then we will go on again quickly. And so I was talking about my father, T.K. Desikachar, and his teacher, Shri T. Krishnamacharya. So Shri T. Krishnamacharya comes from a lineage of yoga teachers. So his father was also a yoga teacher, but Krishnamacharya, Shri Krishnamacharya learned from other teachers also, but his first teacher was his father. And I wanted to say that he was in a time where Vedic chanting was only taught to a certain specific group of people, and women were not chanting at that time. But then he said that, this is Apat Kalam, and he felt that if this chanting was not open to women, and then probably this will die. So he started teaching women, even though it was against many of the great teachers at that time. And he actually had a debate and convinced them, and then he started teaching, and that is why actually I am able to chant today for all of you. If he hadn't opened the doors that day, then I wouldn't be chanting here. And there are so many other great chanting teachers, women chanting teachers that are there today, thanks to him. So he actually was an expert in applying yoga for therapeutic needs. So and one day when he was and through his work, my father was inspired to take up yoga as his profession, and yoga was not looked up as greatly as how it is seen today. In fact, my mother, when she was about to marry my father, she never told anybody that her would be. I mean, her husband was a yoga teacher. That's how many people were not proud of it, and there were not many people who encouraged that. But today, it's a completely different picture. But that is how it is, and thanks to the great work of my grandfather, my father, and many of the teachers of Sri T. Krishnamacharya, like Mr. Iyengar, Pattabhi Joyce, and other great teachers, that the face of yoga has now changed, and many people are understanding the value and the importance of it. So that's how important my grandfather's role was in the field of yoga. And my father also wanted to make this teaching of his father available to everybody. So he started a non-profit organization in 1976 called the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. And the emphasis of that institution was to teach on a one-to-one basis and mostly for therapeutic needs. And the importance of a teacher-student relationship was greatly emphasized by my father. So for every student, that for every seeker who came, he used to sit with them, check them, and then he used to select a specific teacher that he felt would share a great relationship with the student, because the basis of a student-teacher relationship was very important in healing process or in any transformation process. So that is briefly about my father and his teacher, Krishnamacharya. And I also wanted to make a note, emphasize here that the Vedas was not invented or written by one person. This is a collective experiential knowledge of many great ancient rishis who received these teachings through in their meditative state. And these are things that you cannot understand using your senses. So these are all what we call extraordinary or extrasensory perception that are beyond what you can see with your eyes, your smell or touch and everything. So they were able to receive these teachings because they were able to reach that highest state of meditation. So this is a collective knowledge. It's not attributed to just one person. This is a collective knowledge. And like I said before, they talk about everything under the sun and everything that is needed for life in it. So this is a very important text, especially for people in India. That being said, I also emphasized what Vedic chanting meant and the importance of reciting exactly as what the teacher says. Let's go back to some more interactive chanting. This is a chanting on the moon, and the ancient people connected moon to medicine. They felt that worshipping the moon improved the quality of the medicine that you were taking. So let's now again do a very small, this is only, I know we are running short of time. So I'm just going to do a very small chant on moon. So please recite, repeat after me. Oshadhayasam samvadante vadante somena somena saha saharagnya Ragni Ragnya. This is a what we call as a krama in Vedic chanting, where they select a particular passage and then they split it into words and combine the words in a certain way. And this is a very interesting way to teach children because the speed is high and it's very catchy. So I'm just going to recite some types of Vedic chanting because sometimes Vedic chanting is considered to be very monotonous. Not many people like to sit down and listen to it. So I'm just going to chant some kinds of chanting where you can get the idea of how it is. So I'm going to take the same thing that you just recited and going to recite it in what we call as ghanam, where we combine 3 words in a specific way, and it has to be recited very fast. Om Oshadhayas Sagung Samoshadhaya Oshadhayas. I'm sorry, let me start again. Om Oshadhayas Sagung Samoshadhaya Oshadhayas Samvadante Vadante Samoshadhaya Oshadhayas Samvadante Samvadante Vadante Sagung Samvadante Somena Somena Vadante Sagung Samvadante Somena Vadante Somena Somena Vadante Vadante Somena Saha Saha Somena Vadante Vadante Somena Saha Somena Saha Saha Somena Somena Saharagnya Ragnya Saha Somena Somena Saharagnya Saharagnya Ragnya Saha Saharagnya Ragni Tiragnya. And this is another chanting that I'm going to chant, which is a musical aspect to it. Veda has 4 types of Vedas. There are Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda. The one that I'm going to recite will be similar to the Samaveda, which is more musical. Unfortunately, I cannot recite this fast. It has to be done slowly. So the rhythm of it is very important and it should not be lost here. Etat samagayannaste havu havu ahamannam ahamannam ahamannado hamannado hamannadaha ahaggushloka ahamasmi pratamaja purvan devebhyo amritasya na bhai yo ma dadati sa ideva ma vaha ahamannamadantamadmi aham vishvam bhuvanamapyabhavam suvarna jyotihi ya evam veda ityupanishat. My voice was not in the greatest form to get for you guys to feel the full benefit of this chanting or to get the feel of this chanting. All right. How much time do we have, Ishani, left?
I think we're good.
All right.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody has a question. If not, I'll just finish.
So, well, this is live on YouTube. I don't really.
Okay, all right.
A question. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just finish with the chanting. We have 3 more minutes, right? Mr. Bala said that.
Yes, we do.
Right. So this is a small blessing chant for everybody to have good health, especially in this time. We all need that. And also for the TGIF, this is a celebration for you. So I wish that this organization continues for many years to come. Om Shatamanam Bhavatu Shatayuh Purusha Shatendriya Ayushyevendriye Pratitishthati. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Srimati Mekhala Desikachar. That was very beautiful, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I was happy to be a part of this celebration, and I wish good health and happiness for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's move on to our next program. Before I introduce our presenters for this program, I would like to give you all a brief explanation about Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a lifestyle oriented around good health that has been used for thousands of years by the people of India. Ayurveda places emphasis on living a healthy lifestyle based around balancing the 3 energies. The 3 areas of balance are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata is space and air. Subsections of Vata include movement in the body, such as the control of one's mind, breathing, heart function, and blood flow. Vata is believed to be the most powerful area. The second area is Pitta, which is fire and water. Pitta focuses on bodily functions like digestion processes, one's metabolism, and the process of absorbing nutrients and body temperature. The third area is Kapha, which is earth and water, the structure of the body. It touches base on the immune system, the joints, the skin, and other physical structures. Maintaining a good balance in these areas is said to bring good health. Now let's welcome our presenters, Dr. Kishore Kumar Shetty, who is a renowned Ayurvedic surgeon, and Dr. Sarika Verma, who works with Dr. Shetty.
Namaste. I'm Dr. Kishore Shetty, consultant Ayurvedic surgeon and founder director Veda Vaidya Chikitsalayam and Research Institute, Mysore.
Namaste. Myself Dr. Sarika Verma, Chief Ayurvedic Consultant at Veda Vaidya Chikitsalayam and Research Institute, Mysore. Today, we are here to give you a brief introduction into Ayurveda system of medicine. Vedic medicine is considered as one of the oldest system of medicine in the world and was developed in India since the Vedic period, which is almost 5000 years BC. The sages of ancient India used their observation, experiences, and natural resources to develop a unique health system, which they named as Ayurveda, or the science of life. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word and that can be translated as wisdom of life or the knowledge of longevity. There is also a mythological story behind the origin of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is considered to be a branch of Atharva Veda, fourth among the Chatur Veda, and was propounded by the self-born Lord Brahma, one among the Trimurtis. It is said that even before creating the living beings, he developed Ayurveda. The science was first taught by Brahma to his son Daksha and had consisted of 1 lakh verses, which was divided into 1000 chapters. And later Daksha taught it to the divine physicians Ashwini Kumaras, and from them the king of God, that is the Lord Indra, learned Ayurveda. And it so happened that many thousands of years ago, when diseases started threatening the life and lifespan of the humans as well as the other creatures reduced, 53 sages from all over the world, who was greatly pained to see or sad to see the world suffering from different kinds of miseries produced by the diseases of body, mind, and other external causes. They, out of compassion, they assembled at an auspicious place near the Himalayas, and they held a conference on the quest of longevity. So, out of this 53 sages assembled, Sage Bharadwaja volunteered and approached Lord Indra and expressed the desire to learn Ayurveda for the well being of the world. So, Lord Indra was pleased with these sages, and he taught them the great science of life, Ayurveda. And so, after learning Ayurveda from Indra, these sages, they dedicated their entire life in understanding the various concepts of Ayurveda, and they passed down their knowledge and practices to their students, with which the oral teaching tradition of Ayurveda continued for many thousands of years. And later, their disciples started recording their discoveries, and each one of them wrote a different treatise containing the teachings of their masters. And among which these treatises, Charaka Samhita, which gave importance to internal medicine, and Sushruta Samhita, which elaborated various surgical techniques, and also along with the internal medicines, became the fundamental treatise for the future Ayurvedic scholars. And later, taking the principles from both these treatises, that is Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, Acharya Vagbhata compiled another treatise called Ashtanga Sangraha Samhita. And these, all the three textbook became to be collectively called as Brihat Reis, or the three great treatises of present Ayurveda. All these treatises divide or classifies Ayurveda into Ashta Anga, or 8 branches, or 8 specialities, that is Kaya Chikitsa or general medicine, Bala Chikitsa or pediatrics, Shalyatantra or general surgery, which also include obstetrics and gynecology, Shalakya Tantra, that is ENT, ophthalmology, and also include dentistry, Agata Tantra or toxicology, Bhuta Vidya or the psychiatry, Rasayana or rejuvenation therapy, and Vajikarana or the aphrodisiac therapy. So, when we look into Ayurveda, we see that Ayurveda is a science which is purely based on the Vedic philosophy, which tells me, you, and the whole universe as one. And the whole universe, including us, is made up of consists of only 5 basic elements, that is Prithvi, earth, up or the water, Tejas the fire, Vayu the air, and Akasha the space. But we all vary in the proportions. That is, we all are the living microcosm of the universe, and universe is the living macrocosm of us. And these 5 basic elements, or the Panchamahabhuta, combines in a specific way to create the 3 physical energies, or the 3 doshas, and they are the Vata, Pitta, and the Kapha. And these 3 constitutional principles governs the creation, maintenance, and destruction of our body tissues, that is the dhadus, and as well as the assimilation and elimination functions, that is the malas. And to understand these principles, we have to understand the qualities mentioned for the respective doshas. Like for Vata dosha is made up of, or is predominant with Akasha, or the space, and Vayu, or the air, and possesses the qualities like dryness, coldness, roughness, pervasive, and is mobile and clear. And Vata dosha, in its normal state, is responsible for all the movements of our body, like chewing, swallowing, nerve impulses, respiration, circulation, muscles and bowel movements, thinking, urination, menstruation, say what, all the movements of our body. And when vata is deranged, any of these physiological movements get affected and cause various diseases. And likewise, pitta dosha is predominant in tejo, that is fire, and jala, that is water element, and bring forth the qualities of fire and water, like hot, sharp, penetrating, light, liquid, fast spreading, and oily. Just as the fire transfer anything it touches, pitta is responsible for the transformation, like digestion and metabolism, temperature maintenance, endocrine and exocrine hormones, and enzyme production, even sensory perceptions also. And imbalance of pitta can cause dullness, swelling, and other diseases. And the third dosha, that is the kapha dosha, is composed of the element earth, that is the prithvi, and water, that is the up, and has the qualities such as heaviness, smooth, dense, soft, static, and gross. And kapha dosha governs the stability and structure, and it forms the substance of the human body, and all the oily factors of our body, such as the fat tissues, lubricating fluids like synovial fluid in the joint, mucus secretion in the digestive system, etc. All are kapha, and imbalance of kapha dosha leads to either over or decreased in body activities. And these three doshas, representing the five basic elements which are the integral part of our body, are present in everyone, but in varying proportion. And each person is born with a unique combinations of these doshas, which decides the quality of their mind and body, and is termed as the prakriti. And understanding or determining your prakriti, or the fundamental body constitution, is necessary to know your normal physical structure, as well as mental and emotional tendencies. And like how your body and mind would react to a particular disease or a situation in life. And understanding prakriti also help you to understand what is good for you and what you must avoid, and what treatment should be given in a particular disease condition. So this is why you often see two different medicines and treatment given to two different people with same disease. And this is actually the beauty and the uniqueness of Ayurveda. No two persons can be compared, and all are unique in the eyes of Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, all the illness is viewed fundamentally as a dosha imbalance, which we can call as vikriti. And to address these, Ayurveda presents various treatment modalities. But whatever the treatment is, the ultimate goal is to re-establish the person's natural balance of the dosha. And the two key principles of achieving the dosha balance, or the treatment principles of any disease in Ayurveda, is first to avoid the cause, and second to use the therapy or medicines having the qualities opposite to that of the disease causing doshas. And Ayurveda not only focus on treating a disease, but also give importance in maintaining the health of the healthy, and have mentioned various seasonal regimens and diet called as rutucharya, and as well as daily regimens are also mentioned called as dinacharya. And being a life science, Ayurveda also explain how a person should behave, or the thoughts he should have if he wishes to have a healthy and successful life. The ultimate aim of all human is to understand the cause of our existence and fulfill his purusharthas, as and how one can protect his body for fulfilling this aim. And apart from using various medicines and treatment internally and externally, and various diet and regimens, Ayurveda have also explained 5 detox procedures called as the Panchakarma. And the 5 purificatory procedures are: first one, Vamana, or the medical emesis, and is done to treat the deranged or excess kapha dosha. The second is Virechana, or the purgation therapy for treating the Pitta dosha. Third is Anuvasana Vasti, or oil enema. Fourth is the Astapana Vasti, or the decoction enema. And enema is used to treat the Vata dosha mainly. And the fifth one is Nasya, or the nasal medications, and is used for treating the disease above the shoulders. And these are the panchakarmas explained by the Charakacharya. But Sushruta or the surgical group considered Rekta or blood also as a dosha and have considered Rekta Moshana or bloodletting as the fifth procedure of Panchakarma. And when we talk about bloodletting therapies and Sushruta and the surgical school, Dr. Kishore is here with us to give a brief insight into Ayurveda surgeries, which all where the surgery is practiced earlier and which all are done today, the instruments which were used, the merits and limitations of Ayurveda surgeries, and the approach of the Indian government to the practice of surgeries by Ayurveda doctors.
Surgery in Ayurveda is not a new branch started in 20th century. Yes, now the whole world is looking at an Ayurvedic surgeon with raised eyebrows. So it's my pleasure today to address you all regarding this great life science, Ayurveda, and its mystery that is surgery. In India, our union government is very keen on promoting indigenous life sciences and its branches by passing amendments and prescribing guidelines for education, principles and practice of surgery. Recently, a year ago, Indian government passed an amendment stating an Ayurvedic surgeon can practice as many as 39 general surgeries and so as many as in ENT, ophthalmic and dental surgeries. We Ayurveda surgeons in India were practicing all these surgeries since we are independent country. This was an amendment passed by Central Council of Indian Medicine only for the sake of common people to make them aware of the fact and avail the service from Ayurvedic surgeon. References of surgery in Ayurveda goes back to the pre-Vedic period, like replacement of an elephant head to the Lord Ganesha and a great goat head to the Lord Daksha, replacing the foot of Vishpala with the metal one. The divine surgeons Ashwinav had this capability of grafting even long before actual Ayurvedic treatise, written by Acharya Sushruta, that is Sushruta Samhita, came into existence. Of course, he belonged to the same lineage of Ashwini Kumara as Sushruta was the student of Lord Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari learned from Lord Indra, Indra from the Ashwina. We called Lord Dhanvantari as father of surgery, but not Sushruta, because Shalyatantra or Ayurvedic surgery is called as Dhanvantari Sampradaya, that is school of surgery. And our master degree is given as MS Ayurveda, that is Ayurveda Dhanvantari. As we lean towards evidence-based science, yeah, we are forced to make a shout at world that we have our Sushruta. He has recorded more than 300 surgical techniques millenniums before Hippocrates and 2 millenniums before Celsius and Galen. Association of Plastic Surgeons of India in their logo mentions Sushruta as father of plastic surgery. There is a sculpture of Sushruta at Royal Australian College of Surgeries stating him father of surgery. There is another statue which is 40 feet tall, two-tiered with sculpture depicting Sushruta conducting surgery unveiled at AIMS, Kochi. Sushruta took the art and science of surgery to admirable heights and his era came to be regarded as golden age of surgery. I am honored today to speak about contribution of Sushruta for modern day surgery. First and foremost thing what I want to say is his guidelines on surgical ethics. According to him, one can resort to surgery only after completion of medical education, having a proper practical training in surgery, then he must obtain permission from the king and his teacher. Always wear white and sober clothes. Hair must be cut short, nails should be pared. He advocates for the consent to be taken before surgery by the guardian, and the surgeon must treat the patient as his own son. Next, when we look into the anatomy, Sushruta practiced and taught dissection of human cadaver. He states that anyone who wishes to acquire thorough knowledge of anatomy must prepare a dead body and carefully examine all its parts. He elaborated further about selection, method of preparation, and dissecting the dead body along with detailed information about internal organs, their numbers, position, etc. He called arteries as dhamanis, veins as siras. He explained physiology of circulation along with the detailed anatomy of heart. Acharya Sushruta mentioned there are 300 bones in the human body, 5 types of bones, 8 types of joints, effect of trauma over bones, 12 types of fractures, 6 types of dislocations of joints, along with 4 types of reduction. He mentions 14 types of bandaging for the immobilization. At last, he gives rehabilitation exercises for improved functioning of the fractured bone. Sushruta presented a unique concept in surgery, that is marma or vital spots, which can be compared to the different areas of nerve plexus. There are 107 such vital spots. He classified them based on size, number, detailed description of their injuries along with the management. He was cautious about injuring these spots while making an surgical incision. For example, Viduramarma situated behind the ears, injury to which will cause deafness. Another example is Shankavarma, situated in the temporal region, injury to which will cause sudden death. His accuracy in surgical procedures are well known with the surgical instruments he used. He mentioned 101 blunt instruments which included artery forceps, venous forceps, toothed and non-toothed tissue forceps, uh, endoscopies, ureteroscopies, laryngoscopes, along with proctoscope and otoscope. He mentioned 20 sharp instruments that include different types of blades, scissors, probes, trocar and canal. He classified suturing needles as three: they're straight, triangular, and curved. He used both absorbable and non-absorbable sutures. Catgut suture material is the Sushruta's contribution to the humanity. Concept of sepsis and asepsis were well known to the Sushruta. He gave utmost importance to the sterilized operation theatres and surgical instruments. He advised to heat the instrument in fire before cutting the internal organs. He advocated 4 methods for the hemostasis, that is, to stop the bleeding: suturing or ligating the vessels, application of cold, chemical cautery, last one is burning with the heated metals or instruments. Acharya Sushruta was first to conceptualize pre-operative, operative and post-operative care of surgeries. That shows his etiquette towards this noble profession. He was emphasizing on proper practical training before conducting any surgery. He was the first man in the world to use term surgical simulation, and he used different vegetables, fruits, tree barks and leathers to teach different surgical techniques to his disciples. His unique contribution of burn wounds is appreciated by all. He was first to classify wet and dry burns. He have classified all the stages of burn along with their prognosis. He gave detailed description about sunstroke, frostbite, drowning, burn by lighting, along with the respective management of these issues. He was well versed in battlefield surgery, removal of various weapons lodged in the different body parts, reconstruction of the abdominal organs which were ruptured due to the injuries, healing of the different kind of wounds. Acharya Sushruta classified different types of wounds and their management in a very detailed manner. He mentioned 60 types of treatments or procedures for healing an ulcer depending on the stage of the ulcer. Interesting ones are making the scars to turn black or white. He mentioned drugs to induce hair growth and for the hair fall in the form of different types of topical applications. His contribution to the plastic surgery made him stand tall among the all stalwarts of surgery. Rhinoplasty or reconstruction of the broken nose. He have written the first ever written forehead flap rhinoplasty of technique still used today. In the same way, otoplasty is earlobe construction. Repair of cleft lip and cleft palate are described by him. His contribution to the embryology and the obstetrics and gynecology are praiseworthy. He teaches month-wise fetal development inside mother's womb. their various illness including intrauterine growth retardation and their effective management. He gave clear-cut difference between the abortion and the miscarriage. He also described intrauterine death of the infant and for which he advocated caesarean section to save mother. He gave insights on the craniotomy, evisceration in complicated presentations. In the field of proctology, Ayurveda have made a great revolution. Kshara Sutra, therapy for the mostly recurring fistulae being fantastic success over the last few decades. Urological surgeries such as lithotripsy are the contributions of Ayurvedic surgery to the humankind. Various ophthalmic surgeries such as excision of pterygium, IND for the chalazion cyst, glaucoma trabeculectomy, and cataract surgery such as attraction of the lens with the IOL implantation. Some of the nasal surgeries like septoplasty for DNS, nasal polypectomy, etc. were practiced by him. So, to put in a nutshell, such a man with flesh and blood performed these surgeries, and what astonished is favorable outcomes from the most of his procedures. The regular teaching of Ayurvedic surgery started with the creation of Samhitas under the master and disciple, that is Guru Shishya Parampara, which gradually became institutionalized in the 7th century with the establishment of a department of Ayurveda at the ancient Takshashila University. As India is known for accommodating all the religions in the country, there was a time when Buddhism and Jainism was very popular, which led to banning of such invasive surgical procedures, as the Buddhism and Jainism believed in non-violence. Later, with the Mughal invasion, the University of Takshila and Nalanda was burnt and most of our texts which contained valuable information was lost. Then came the European invasion and they tried to impose their knowledge onto us. The Western system of medicine was introduced to India by the British in the 19th century. And by this time, downfall of Ayurvedic surgery was at its peaks. After independence and presently under the Central Council of Indian Medicine, that is CCIM, the regulatory body for the Ayurvedic education, the Bachelor of Ayurvedic Medicine and the Surgery, that is BAMS, is awarded to all candidates who successfully complete a 5.5-year course, including a 1-year internship. A postgraduate MD or MSIU degree is awarded to the successful candidates by a recognized educational institution after 3 years of specialization in various divisions of Ayurveda. So, this was a brief introduction to Ayurveda and Ayurvedic surgeries. We also take this opportunity to thank the organizer of the Great India Festival for giving us the platform to give an introduction about Ayurveda. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Sarika Verma and Dr. Kishore Kumar Shetty for this educational video about Ayurveda. Now, let me introduce you all to my co-host of today's event, Sheila Parthanarayan, who will be taking the lead from now on.
Thank you, Shani, for introducing me. Hello, everyone. This is Sheila Parthanarayana, and I will be the MC for rest of the event. And before moving to our next event, we would like to pause and discuss few things on how much we understood about Ayurveda. We see Ayurveda is just not about the medicinal values or how we can do home remedies for a few ailments, but it is just it's the way of life that we understand Ayurveda as, and that has been practiced from several thousands of years in India. And because it is a way of life, many people in India, they do not follow allopathy. Many of them, they stick to Ayurveda and they stick to the natural holistic life. by using all the uh, elements out of Mother Earth, and out of nature. And any drugs or allopathic practices are hardly followed by people who follow Ayurveda, and they feel very healthy, not only from outside, not only physically. It's more on our mind and our soul, feeding our soul, and that's how we keep our body as well maintained. So yeah, we learned a lot from Ayurveda. What do you think, Ishani?
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I didn't know much about it, and it was definitely like very like good to learn about it. I would also like to talk about like my previous, since we're like it's the 10th grand celebration, right? So I would like to talk about my previous experience with TGIF, like the Great India Festival. So I am a classical dancer, so I've been dancing for like a few years now, and I have performed at the festival before. I think it was 2018, and it was definitely a great like experience to be a part of like the team and the environment, and just everything was really nice. So would you like to talk about your past like experiences working here?
Wow, that I didn't know about your performance. That's really nice to
Yeah.
hear. Wow. So what classical dance? May I ask?
I'm a Bharatnatyam dancer.
Wow, wow, that's great. I always wanted to learn Bharatanatyam, but now I'm learning Kathak. So somehow
yeah.
I'm filling the void of not starting classical dance from a young age. I've started now to learn Kathak. I was like, so better. It's not so late.
Yeah, it's
Learn anything, right? Yeah. So when I moved to Ottawa in 2018, and I did not know about the Great India Festival. I was introduced to this festival from my colleague. Surprisingly, he's a Canadian. He's above 60. And when he said that, yeah, there is a Great India Festival that happens every year, and you have to go with your friends and have fun. I did not have any expectation of how big this event will be in Ottawa.
Yeah.
When I visited in the city of Ottawa, in front of city of Ottawa, I did not expect the humongous stage.
The audience in person is definitely like huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did not expect such delicious food, and there were so many volunteers helping. Coming from India and immediately adjusting to Canadian food. And as soon as I saw Indian food in this festival, I was awestruck.
That's definitely one of the things that people miss. I think being virtual, it's definitely a great like way to celebrate. Virtually, I'm glad we're doing that, but in person, we definitely miss the food that we used to eat.
Yes, Indian food is the universally accepted food. Everyone likes it. So we are very much awaiting for the next year event in person. Yeah, even it's not only about when I got my friends to the festival, there were other friends from other countries, non-Indians. So it was great for me to explain the Indian culture and just observe how they were interested in Indian culture and tradition. They were asking a lot of questions, and for them, just knowing there above 260 languages in India, and 20, so many states, and each state have different language, different culture and food, cuisines. They were so amazed by just what all India holds. And we also have many other countries like Indonesia and Thailand. They also follow most of our Indian traditions. Yes. If we speak about Ramayana, even they have different even though their interpretation is different, the core message and the core story is same. When we see their interpretation of how Rama looks, of how Hanuman looks, could be different, but the message and the values of what the epic story portrays is
definitely.
same, right? Yeah.
And like I feel that is interesting about the Great India Festival is that when you come from like a specific like side of India, like let's say South India, and you learn about like East, West, North, you learn so much about like how different the culture is and how they view things. Definitely it's one country, but like it's the way that people live. The culture is definitely a lot different, when you compare the parts. And it's like interesting to learn about all of it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. When we are outside India, we do not differentiate between states that I'm from South or in North or Kerala. It is just one family. We are from India, so that's how we portray. That builds more unity, and we always stand for our culture and our people.
Yeah,
that is one thing that other foreigners look forward to Indian, or how they
there's
hold
just so
the
much that we
relations.
can offer, like not just one thing, not just one culture. We have so many different cultures that we are able to offer to people, and it's just very unique. Different than like the rest of them. Yeah. And there were also like a lot of workshops in the previous years that were a lot like very interesting. I remember there was like the one time I went there, I got henna on my hands.
Wow.
I guess that's what they call it here.
Yeah, henna or mehendi.
Mehendi,
mehendi. That's the usual start for a festival, to apply it on our hands and legs. Just applying henna on our hands and legs give us the festive mode in our minds, and we feel so excited. Yeah, even I apply here in Ottawa. I got the henna from India when I visited.
That's so nice.
Yeah, during Diwali or any other festival, so I can apply, right? And festivals and India, they are go hand in hand, right?
Definitely.
Even they, my friends were excited about how every festival is different. Many other countries also have these festivals. Festivals are mostly to reunite the families and reunite people, connect people, forget their differences, and increase their bond, relationships, and the message is same. Any festival, here being the Thanksgiving, or the message is same of getting families together. But we Indians have a more delightful way of celebrating festivals, and we see the planets alignment and have the
definitely,
right. They all matter. It's not just the dates on the calendar, but it's the alignment of the stars and planets, and how auspicious each day is to perform certain activities. All of them, like after coming out of India, we understand the significance of how much importance everything our ancestors followed, and we are the youth who has to follow that and maintain that.
Definitely. It's been like a very nice experience. So like, and this year, like virtually too, surprisingly, it's been very nice, the 10th year. And unfortunately, we couldn't all be in person together, but you know what? This is better. Like, this is actually very nice to celebrate the 10th year, and it's supposed to be like a really grand celebration. And it is. It's been going on for I think it's been going on for the past few months. There's like been a couple of like programs every few months, I think.
Yes.
And it was really interesting.
Yes, that's exciting as always, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though we are missing the in-person, we saw the huge success in 2020 online TGIF
Oh, yeah.
celebration, and this year, surprisingly, it's been even increasing. It's an increasing graph of success of TGIF. Many of my friends have attended, and I also shared about this event with my office colleagues, and even they
Yeah.
are very excited to attend. And yeah, this has even surprisingly and unexpectedly, we have the huge success on virtual event of TGIF as well, right? Yeah. I guess our participants are also very excited to our upcoming events, and they're waiting when our
Yeah.
chit chatting will be completed, and they're waiting
Yeah,
what's
the next
next?
program in
What's
line
the
is
next
very
program?
interesting.
Well, they have to wait for a few more minutes, and then I'll let them know what's the event, right? Yeah, it's a wonderful
Okay.
platform then.
Okay, so my time as co-host has come to an end. So let me introduce you again to Sheila Parthanarayan, who will be taking on from now. Thank you for your time, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Shani. Thank you for introducing me and being the co-host for all this while. And now we will move to the panel discussion on relevance of Sanatana Dharma values for a multicultural society. The moderator of this panel discussion is Dr. Somesh Bhargava. He was born in the state of Jaipur, now Rajasthan, in an Orthodox Hindu family. He studied at St. Xavier's, a Catholic school, and then attended medical school in Jaipur. He arrived to Canada in 1968, being qualified as a pediatrician from the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. He then moved to Ottawa in 1974. He has frequently involved in the practice of Sanatana Dharma inspired from his father. Dr. Somesh began his spiritual studies with the Tulsi Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita. And after taking an early retirement, he has been actively studying and practicing Vedanta through the writings of Swami Krishnananda of Divine Life Society, Swami Ram Sukdas Ji, Sri Aurobindo, RK Mission monks, and significantly from his guru, Swami Dayananda and Swami Chinmayananda. Welcome, Dr. Somesh. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much.
The next, yes, we will introduce the next panelist, who is Shri.Vibhuti Jha. He's an entrepreneur and a committed practitioner of transcendental meditation for the past 30 years. He did his undergraduation and master's in economics in India. He then moved to the United States in 1991, being a lead in promoting NRI businesses between the two countries by utilizing the opportunity in the West Coast to open more business markets in India. Moreover, Vibhuti sir developed serious understanding of Indian culture, its rich traditions and values, Vedic heritage, and its varied and beautiful interpretations, as he was often required to talk about and explain the mysterious and unknown India and Indian values to the uninitiated and the curious minds of the West. He believes that Indian and Hindu tradition needs to be known around the world, including the values of transcendence, Sanatana Dharma, and teachings of Vedas. Hindus and Vedas teach the true meaning of the word acceptance of others as they are, which is far more relevant, strong, and authentic expression than tolerance as a word and practice. He has been a part of several TV programs, contributed several articles on leadership and corruption. Being a constant learner, Vibhuti ji currently serves as a coach and consultant in Academy of Leadership Sciences, Switzerland. He is married to Shobana for the past 35 years, and their son Aditya obtained his master's from Columbia University, New York, in negotiations and conflict resolutions and his own consulting practice. Welcome to Vibhuti, sir. Namaskara. And our last panelist.
Thank you, Sheila-ji, for such a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that sincerely. And I must say that it was a pleasure to hear both you and Ishani-ji talks about. Both of you are much younger than my daughter, so I will call you Ishani and Sheila. Both of you were having a fabulous conversation, and it is very heartening for me to see the youth and the young like you are getting involved in understanding your own Bharat. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Our last panelist is Dr.Gyaandeo S. Maharajh. He is an active practitioner. He's an active practitioner of the Sanathana prayers and samskaras, and he's a devotee of the profound Hindu scriptures, particularly the Tulsi Ramayana. He was born in Trinidad and Tobago, and his father is Pandit Jagdeo Maharajh, from whom he eventually got the training of being a Pandit. Dr. Maharajh moved to Canada at the tender age of 15, where he pursued his undergraduation in biochemistry and psychology at McMaster University. He then studied medicine at McGill University and graduated with MD in 1990. Furthermore, his training in general surgery at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, followed by adult cardiac surgery at the University of Ottawa Heart Institute. He then specialized in pediatric cardiac surgery at the Hospital for Sick Children, Toronto University, and the Children's Hospital at University of Colorado in Denver. He's currently the Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, a position he has held for the past 20 years. Dr. Maharajh is also the head adult congenital cardiac surgeon at the University of Ottawa Heart Institute. He lives with his beautiful wife for over 30 years now, Chandavibha Maharaj, and are blessed with 3 beautiful children, Ved Prakash, Yaday, and Damini. Welcome to Dr. Gyaandeo Maharajji. Namaskar.
Namaskar, Sheila-ji. Very, very lovely introduction. Thank you very much. And once again, it's my sincere pleasure and good fortune to be here on this eminent panel and taking part in the Great India Festival. Thank you.
Yes, we will now begin the panel discussions.
Namaskar. I begin in the traditional way of all Sanatana discussions of yore. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Mavid Vishavahai, which is from the Taittiriya Upanishad, from the Ayurveda. Basically, all I've said is, may Brahman protect us, guide us, and pursue, so that we can pursue our quest and our discussions in a very amicable, undisturbed, peaceful manner. And for this, we seek the Lord's blessings. From the introduction of the 2 panelists today, you must have gathered that these people are no professors of divinity or professors of religious studies in various universities, which, in my opinion, is a theoretical study of the subject. These people are very much out on the street, out in the offices, out in the community, practicing what they have learned and propagating, rather than using the word propagating, unveiling the knowledge which they have gained about their own inheritance, which is Sanatana Dharma, and how they have been able to adjust this to the multicultural societies in which they both live. As to the multicultural aspect of things is concerned, I don't think there could be any place which would be more multicultural, more multilingual, more more interfaith, more multi-faith than the present and even the past so-called Bharatvarsh. But our sages saw in it, in this entire divinity, in this creation, in this universe, starting from the Purush Sukta to going to the Rudram, all the practices and how they saw the oneness in all and all in the oneness that exists. This being the philosophical, the Sanatana Dharma view. We go further into books which were later than that, and that again, the Bhagavad Gita talks of basically two things. Every chapter ends by saying, Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre. So what is the Brahma Vidya? The Brahma Vidya is the oneness of the universe, which the Purush Sukta has talked about, which the Rudram has talked about. And how do we get to it is what the Gita elaborates on by the Karma Yoga concept. And in Karma Yoga, this is where I find the practical application comes. And you see that we are not a society which talks about rights, which not says that this is my right, this is my right, this is my right. We talk about duties. And Karma Yoga is doing your Niyat Karma, and Niyat Karma being what you have to do. And that is where the various rin are there. We've got Pitta rin, we've got Deva rin, we've got Manav rin. All these rins, and they have to be paid back, and they have to be done in an efficient manner without that's the ma phaleshu, ma karma phaleshu ad sarva dharma karmanyavadhikarasya ma phaleshu kadachana. So with that view, those are the two things, the Brahma Vidya being the goal and Karma Yoga being the path. And I think with these values, it's ironic that we have to discuss this. And the thing is, the reason why we have to discuss it, it's almost like saying, what is the role of DNA in an organism? Because the reason may be that we don't know what DNA is. And I think the purpose of discussions like this should be to unveil and explain what the Sanatana Dharma values are. And I'm sure we have two very, very outstanding, as you can see, as you must have noticed from the CVs that were, the introductions that were given out, that you will be going home richer, and you're going home with a lot more knowledge about the Sanatana Dharma. So with that, let me say we will have first Shri.Vibhuti Jhaji present his views, and then we will be followed by Dr.Gyaandeo Maharajh. And then if there are any questions or clarifications, or if there is a discussion, that will follow. So I request now Vibhuti ji to take over, please.
Namaste to everybody, and Dr. Gyaandeo ji, lovely to meet you here. Dr.Somesh Bhargava ji, aapne to pehle hi declare kar diya that people will take back lessons for home and application. So I have a huge responsibility to live up to. But as I was listening to Sheila young lady, and Ishani, I was very enthused. And you said it in the beginning that we are the warriors on the streets. We are not scholars of the traditional variety teaching in college and schools. But it is important for me to share with the young people and everyone here. When I came to, just imagine 1991 April, whatever you were doing at that time. That's the time when I arrived in the United States. And my job at that time, as a head of the institution with American Express Bank, was to promote and market India as a business destination. And as it always happens, we Indians know everything, but we don't know anything about our own faith, our own beliefs, and our own cultures. We know about Ramayana, we know about Maha Bharat, we have an incident or two in our minds, and we talk about it, believing that we know everything. So this is such a favorite topic of mine to talk about that I can talk for hours. But I'll restrict myself, as requested by you, Somesh, to keep myself for 10, 12 minutes. So a few points that I will elaborate on. I live by practical lessons of life, and I learned two lessons, two quotations I have adopted in my life. Because reading a book of quotation, you don't become a wise man, just as you don't become a linguistic expert by memorizing a dictionary. So remember these two things, very important to bear in mind. So I adopted two quotations. One is by Albert Einstein, when he said, "Any intelligent fool can complicate a simple problem. It takes courage to move in the other direction." And second one is attributed to Swami Vivekananda, when he was asked to define what is poison. He said, "Anything in excess." So I'll leave that thought with you, but it's brilliant to notice the Sheila and Ishani talk about the diversity of India. Here is Ishani learning Bharatnatyam. Her last name is Singh. She is learning Bharatnatyam, and Sheila is trying to learn something else. Every diversity that exists in the world lives in India. So when I came to the US, I became a better Hindu, a better Indian, because then I began to realize that there was so much valuable stuff in our own faith that we had not talked about. And that's the time an education given by a very famous Harvard management consultant, an Indian, in Bankers Club in Bangalore, was truly remarkable, and it helped. He said in 1983 October, he said that Indians do not need to go to Western universities to learn management and their skill sets. It's all there in Mahabharata and Ramayana and Gita, provided we study, not read it. If you study these two literatures of our life, which is not mythology, which is truth, said of a narrative of a particular era, then we begin to understand that everything is right out there. Real politics, sacrifice, human values, teamwork, everything is there in Bhagavad Gita, including, and Ramayana as well, including two very critical principles, that appeasement and pandering never works, and that you have to rise to protect your dharma. Ahimsa is a value which is correct, but whenever dharma is threatened, Krishna Bhagavan and Ram Bhagavan, they both had to resort to weapon. So Shastra and Shastra both must move together. But Sanatana Dharma, what exactly it is, and that's what my discovery is all about. I want to share that. The Sanatana Dharma is gender, color, race neutral. No other religion says so. But Sanatana Dharma predates all established religions as we know them, going back as long as you can go, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, they all have a specific date that they were established. But what were they prior to the religion being established? We were all humans, isn't it? We were all Sanatana. We lived in nature. So the message of Sanatana is only very simple. That is all those things, gender, color, race, neutral, is non-discriminatory. is totally non-discriminatory and is accepting, use the word accepting, of everything and everyone as is. That is the definition of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is most often or not misapplied. We say is a family. It's not a family. It is the understanding of the concept that we are all in the same natural world. There is one sun, there is same water, there is same nature, trees, oxygen, everything. Both the gentlemen are doctors here. Does any religion have a monopoly on cancer, migraine, or a pediatric illness? A patient is a patient with a problem. You don't look at the religion of that person. So religion has its base on fear and ignorance. Sanatana Dharma has its base in knowledge and non-discrimination and accepting. That's the beautiful definition that I encountered, and I share that with most of my American audiences and my friends. When you share these definitions, that it is uniting, it's not tolerance. You know, we must abandon the use of word religious tolerance. Instead, we must use the word religious acceptance. So I tell my Christian and Muslim friends that you believe in Jesus or you believe in Allah, good for you. But don't tell me that I'm wrong about my practice. And this is what is important about our Sanatana Dharma. It's all about based in knowledge-based, vad, vivad, debate and dialogue. And then you choose your own path. That's why there is nobody who is ever wrong. So when other religious practitioners tell me that Jesus is the only way, I said, good for you. But don't tell me my Krishna is wrong. Or don't tell me my belief in Ram is wrong. That's my belief. Each one is welcome to do that. That's the essence of Sanatana Dharma. The other part which I wanted to talk about is that we as Sanatana practitioners must pay attention to the natural details of life. And this is what is important. Diversity, unity, equality is all accepted because we accept individual differences. The current world is completely embroiled in the political discussion on equality and equity. Guess what? Where does the individual differences go? But we are all different. Each one of us looks different. We are different. Our color skin is different, though we belong to the same country. Our vocational preferences are different. Our abilities, our individual likes and dislikes are different. So I always tell my Western audience, the beauty of Sanatana Dharma is it's non-discriminatory, is for that reason, because we are all different. And if we do not respect and accept the differences, the individual differences that exist in life, then we can't establish equality or equity. Doesn't make any difference. Because not everybody is 6 feet tall, not everybody has a great figure, not everybody looks alike, not everybody speaks alike. Everything is different. So the point which I'm trying to drive at is not the textual or the spiritual or the powerful shlokas which exist. But what I'm appealing to everybody here is knowing what you know now, knowing what you observe in the world around you. Think, where do we go from here? That's very important because knowledge is such that it is not permanent. It changes. Medical practice changes. Economic theories changes. Banking practices change all the time. But what is important here is to bear in mind that while the change is constant, the Sanatana Dharma is eternal, is relevant all the time. It fits into the moment at any given time. It's about universalism of behavior, conduct, and attitudes. So, universally, show me a parent that doesn't love his children. Universally, show me a parent who doesn't wish well for their children to do the best in their lives. Show me a child, show me a family that doesn't have tears for the departed. These are universal attributes of humans. And that's what is important. What you pray, who you pray, how many times you pray, doesn't matter. Eventually, what decides is what you do. And that was an example. When somebody asked me, this is a real example, because I have encountered a whole lot of scenarios in this country because of dialogue and discussion. So somebody told me, dear Muslim friend of mine told me that you guys don't even pray. I said, doesn't matter. What matters is what I do. So I gave him an example. And that's what I want to share with you is inculcate a sense of making an inquiry. That's important. That's what the ancient wisdom of Hinduism comes through Sanatana Dharma. Was it a constant state of debate and dialogue and discussion? It's not about saying that you are right or wrong. So engage your friends in debate and dialogue about your own virtue. So here is one example, and then I will stop. This was an example when I was told that you don't pray. I said, no, I do, but it's not who I am is not a function of how many times I pray. So I said, your guy prays 5 times a day, straps himself in a bomb and goes and explodes himself, kills 5 or 10, and 20 are injured. Now here is Vibhuti Jha driving by. I pick up 5 or 6 people in my car, take them to the hospital, and their lives are saved. So from your definition, who is Khuda ka banda in this situation? Me or the one who killed? And invariably their answer is you. That's the point which I'm trying to say. We must desist from questioning somebody's belief, but we must retain the right to ask and make an inquiry. And that's the thing that I will urge to all of you, that I'm here I do a television program. I'm trying to build a narrative. I always believe that if we don't define ourselves, others will. So in the absence of our own narrative, others will define us. That's why you will find that people will find us. These guys are praying to so many idols. These guys are different. Yes, we are different. We are different. We have to carry our message forward, that you can be happy as you are, but don't tell others you are wrong. That's the word acceptance comes to play a big role. So my friends, all those who are listening today, I'm very honored to be invited to speak and share my thoughts. I'm here to answer your questions. Forgive me my indulgence of not quoting you the wise slokas and the texts of Mahabharat, Ramayana, or the Vedantic philosophy, but let me say one more thing. Everything that happens to us, we are responsible for it. So as you have started the dialogue and debate and the education, the 10th anniversary, I congratulate you for doing this event for the last 10 years. And I'm very delighted that you use the word Bharat in your posters or in your this one, because that's something very important for me too. I'll tell you what, people often talk about that Hindus have no unity. And I say unity is not a shirt or a dress that you wear it and voila, there is unity. Unity drives around itself on a purpose, on a cause. And what I want to say is that India was a name given by foreigners who could not pronounce our entity clearly. Hindu, Sindhu, and everything began to be called as that. So goes the history that I have read. But before that, we were Bharatvarsh. We were Bharat. We know that. One of the reasons that unity doesn't come amongst Hindus or Indians is because we reject the term India subliminally. Because India was a name given to us by somebody else. It's like me, Vibhuti, becomes Vibhutai for an Englishman, or Mr. Jha becomes Ha for a Spanish and Mexican people. And I had to tell them that my J is vocal. It stays as that. Somesh Bhargav is Somesh Bhargav. He is not Somesh Bhargava, right? So it's our responsibility to call Ram, Ram, not Rama. Remember that part. So I have begun to make a phonetic change in spelling. Ram is not RAM because with their definition, it's a ram, it's an animal. A ram is a truck. So they wonder, what is ram? Who are you calling ram? But it is a Ram. So let's begin to add RAAM. So, things have to change. And I will end here by saying, Thank you very much for this honor. We must address ourselves as Bharatvasis. That's the only name. It's only under the banner of NRIs, as Sheila was talking about, that we are all Indians. Otherwise, we are all Tamilians, Biharis, and everything else. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji. It was very, very enlightening. And now I will request Dr. Gyaandeo Maharaj to give his side of the story and his travels, his family's travels, right from their Dharma Bhumi Bharat to their Karma Bhumi Canada.
Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure indeed listening to Jhaji and his very, very insightful take on the practical applications of Hinduism and Hindu philosophy into everyday life. I always find myself at terrible conflict when I have to speak on Hinduism and its relevance to current and modern life. I am reminded of the very famous story of the 7 blind men and their quest to understand what an elephant was. And these 7 blind men, when they came upon the elephant, all happened to grasp different parts of the elephant. So one blind man remarked that this thing called an elephant is very much like a vine, as he had grabbed the tail. And the other one who had grabbed the trunk said, no, this was very much like a snake. And the other one who grabbed onto the legs, no, it's very much like a tree. And the humor and wisdom in this anecdote is that they were all right in their own limited sense, but none of them were completely correct. Hindu philosophy and Hinduism, at least to my limited understanding, is very much like that. And when you have to have a 12 or 15 or 20-minute discussion on the applications of Hindu philosophy as it is expressed in Sanathana Dharma and its relevance to multiculturalism in a contemporary society, it's a little bit like looking at the very, very dark water-laden rain cloud that just drops a light drizzle and passes on its way. The trouble that I feel most of us have as Indian and Hindu diaspora across this world is to come to terms with what in essence is our Hinduism and Hindu philosophy. And then secondly, and more importantly and relevantly, is how do we apply this in our current and day-to-day life as it applies and drives how we relate to those around us in this pluralistic environment that we find ourselves in. I apologize to whoever came up with this because it's not mine, but I will only submit that I at least do them the service of remembering the wisdom that they transmitted, even if I don't remember who transmitted it. But there was a great acronym for the essential tenets of Hinduism called MAPS, M-A-P-S-S, that synthesize the essential tenets of Hindu philosophy. And they represent the terms moksha, ahimsa, punarjanma, sanskara, and sanatana. Any of these concepts in and of themselves alone would be enough and more than sufficient to illustrate the Hindu philosophy and thought around multiculturalism and pluralism. When taken from a practical standpoint and a day-to-day applicability, I think it has to be spun around the other way, and it comes up as a different acronym, not terribly flattering, but it's SPASM. S being Sanatan, which means eternal, and in a more practical sense, eternal means always. One of the truly beautiful and difficult things about Hinduism is its profoundness. It accommodates both the intellectual and the unintelligent. It has place for the educated as well as the non-educated. It has place and relevance for all different creed, color, race. It is like having a single educational institution that accommodates kindergarten to PhDs and beyond. If you were to imagine what such an institution would look like and how it would run, then you're beginning to grasp Hindu philosophy. In terms of its practical applications, when we talk about the eternalness of Hindu philosophy, and in my simple mind, Sanathana Dharma is the practical day-to-day application of Hindu philosophy. It is doing what you feel to be correct and right as you've been taught, as you've learned, as you've assimilated, as you understand, most importantly, when you've been taught these great philosophical tenets. And so by nature, it is not going to be the same. The three panelists that you see before you here, we're all Hindus. But I dare say when we think of Ram, when we think of Krishna, they're not exactly the same. They don't look the same. They don't speak the same. They don't think the same. But yet they're the one God. The eternalness of the religion, of the philosophy, more properly said, comes from the fact that there is no founder. And so, since it was there before, it is there now and will be there afterwards. It is non-transient. When you apply this to day-to-day life, it becomes always, which means two things. This should dictate how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. But I think it also means, for me anyway, that you always have to check. You always have to go back. There's a beautiful chaupai from the Ramayana that says, Kriki niravahi chaturakishana, Jimmy Buddha taje moha madamana, which means the gardener, the smart gardener, doesn't go once and pull out the weeds from his garden and then shows up 3 months later to reap a bountiful harvest. He knows that he has to go there every day and pull out the weeds that creep into the garden. And so you and I constantly have to engage in discourse, as Shri.Vibhuti was telling us, in discourse and debate, in learning, in expanding our minds and expanding our horizons so that we can inform ourselves to then bring these different philosophies, these different tenets into our daily life. Sanatan. Punarjanma. If we talk about the concept of reincarnation, that in and of itself, like I said, would be sufficient to talk about multiculturalism. Unfortunately for most of us, and to quote the great Amitabh Bachchan ji in one of his movies, Bharon becomes barren because their minds are very narrow. When we think of reincarnation, for most of us, myself included, it is limited to a scope that is essentially Indian. We worry about whether we're going to be reborn or whether we were previously dogs or cats or bacteria, or whether we were Kshatriya or Brahman or Sudra. We never seem to worry about whether we were Swedish or Ethiopian or Argentinian. But the philosophy is not limited by our ignorance. If we accept that there's the concept of reincarnation, then, as Jhaji very succinctly put it, the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam becomes very broad and all-encompassing. And so you actually need go no further than that to realize that these different peoples, or seemingly different peoples that are around us with their different practices and norms, are but for a quirk of fate that we would call karma, us. And so, Punarjanma, ahimsa. The concept of ahimsa in Hinduism is really expressed as compassion. And so, in order to practice compassion, you need to have understanding. In order to have understanding, you need to be informed. To extend compassion to your fellow man, to your fellow being, and again, we have to be careful not to limit our thinking and limit the scope of our thinking to say that this only applies to our fellow man. We would be held to task today. We would have to say fellow person. We would have to say fellow being. We'd have to say being then represents any creation within the universe, be it plant, animal, person, object. Because this is the scope of our Hindu philosophy. All of these things are within the realm of creation and existence, and so it is game for us to be any one of these things at any given time. Sanskara. Sanskara, again, to my limited understanding, espouses the values of ritual and practices that you bring, that you are taught. And if you were born within a Hindu household, you would be taught the tenets of Hinduism. And you will imbibe to some extent what those tenets mean, not only to the people who teach you, but within the scope of your understanding. The application runs from the vast to the mundane. It encompasses the scope of you getting up in the morning and saying your morning prayer as you arise out of bed. It encompasses you lighting your diya and doing arti in your puja room. It encompasses when you call the pandit at home to do a Satnarayan Katha. It encompasses the vast yagyas that are ensconced within the Vedas. These are all included in the term, at least in my mind, sanskar. All of these things range over the practice of things that are within our daily lives that we feel we need to step out of our lives to then bring to practice. And when we look at the people around us, regardless of their faith, regardless of their creed, regardless of where their birthplace was, what their political views might be, we have to accept at some level. I remember being a young, arrogant teenage mind filled with knowledge and being completely ignorant. When it suddenly dawned on me one day, because I was very proud of the fact that being a Hindu and being a Pandit and a Brahmin and everything else, I was vegetarian, and how great that was. And somehow made the terrible equation in my mind that this had assured me a place in heaven, which again illustrates my ignorance because we don't actually have a heaven. And then one day it struck me because I was also very impressed with this character called Mother Teresa. And in the dichotomous way that your brain functions, it never occurred to me that Mother Teresa was not a Hindu. And that probably much more so than me, in my great accomplishment of being vegetarian, she would be assured a place in heaven. And was not because of the fact that she was a Hindu, but like Vibhuti ji so nicely said, it is about what you do. It is about what you practice on a day-to-day basis. And regardless of what the religion says, what religion you say you belong to, it is about what you do in your day-to-day life. And so that's the nice thing about medicine. It forces you to come to terms with all these things. And again, as Vibhuti pointed out, I would not have a different treatment. I would not have a different heart operation for somebody based on the color of their skin or their religious practices or the political views. Regardless of how badly I might feel, it might be justified. That's my own ignorance. And so it forces you to come to terms with the acceptance of the broad scope of humanity that presents itself before you on a daily basis. And again, I believe would be explained quite sufficiently just by the practice and understanding of samskara. And finally, and most importantly, not to forget the M in the spasm, moksha. The concept of moksha within Hinduism is that of liberation. It is not attaining heaven. It is not as limited as that. It is the concept of liberation. And obviously it begs the question, liberation from what? It is liberation from the cycle of births and deaths. It touches on the essential unity of the creation. In Hinduism, the concept of moksha is the unification of the Atma with the Paramatma. It is the rejoining of the soul to the master soul. And that very profound concept is simply stated as, if you get past your material appearances, thoughts, and feelings, and you learn to identify with the soul, then we would accept that this soul is divine because it is a spark of the master soul of the Paramatma, and therefore must be divine. I learned that in first year math, that any part of infinity, no matter how infinitesimal, is itself infinity. And so this master soul that has lent a spark to us in the form of our own soul or Atman, then itself is divine, and so is in this constant search for unification with its source. Many much wiser people than me and much more learned people than me has illustrated this concept as the cycle of water. As it leaves its state in the sky in its pure form, descends through the atmosphere, depending on which part of the world you live in, inculcates more and more impurities until it finally merges in some form into the ocean, where it is under the extreme heat of the sun, now converted back to its pure state and returns to its original pure existence. We forget about that part, conveniently, because most of us feel that, well, my soul is divine, it'll go back to its source. I just need to sit back and enjoy the ride. We forget that we need to find the sun and the incredible heat of the sun that will take us through this process of transformation. Since all of the created beings have the same divine spark, the concept of multiculturalism almost becomes oxymoronic. There cannot be any difference of any significance or practical purposes if we can get ourselves past our outward trappings. Again, somewhat simplistically, to conclude, so if you remember these tenets in that sequence of applications, I think we may have a bit of a roadmap as how we may go about applying these very, very, very profound concepts in our daily life. And just finally, so that we, for those of us feel that amongst us that may feel that we haven't said any of the great shlokas, I will, and I guess I am being oxymoronic because I'm not going to tell you a great shloka, but simply to quote from the Tulsikrit Ramayana again, when Tulsi Das ji says, Siya Rama mai sab jag jani, karau pranama jori yukapani. In everything around me, I see Ram and Sita. And so I have no choice but to clasp my hands and bow my head in reverence. And if we were to simply do this, everything and all around us would be Ram and Sita. But, and there's always a but, we forget that we are not Tulsidas ji. And so the only way, in a very real and practical sense, for us to be able to say Siya Rama Mai Sab Jagajani, there's only one of two ways, really, if you follow Hinduism. You have to be Hanumanji, or you have to try and become like Tulsidas ji. The only way for us to see Ram and Sita in everything is that we have to bring Ram and Sita into us. And that is the quick. You have to look within you and examine within your own mind, within your own thoughts, within your own feelings and emotions, and figure how you're going to strive every day, every minute, to become worthy of having Sita and Ram within you, so then you can see them everywhere and in everything. The limitation is not on the philosophy. The limitation is not on those around us. It is us who are limited. And so if we simply remember that that is where we need to expend our efforts and our energy, then we will all move towards the proper application of the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I will conclude here for now and like to thank again the organizers and the eminent panelists for giving me this opportunity to share with you the musings of a slightly deranged mind over the last many, many years, and to have the opportunity to espouse to you my particular take on these very lofty concepts and very deep philosophies. Anyone, thank you.
Dhanyavad Vibhuti ji and Gyan Maharaj. Sari, after listening to both of you, the points are very clear, and that is the recognition, the acceptance, again, the word acceptance keeps coming up, of Sat, from which comes also the Sanathana concept, and which a later on saint in the Indian tradition, Guru Nanak, very beautifully said, Ek Onkar Satanam and Adi Sach, Jugadi Sach. So that which persists all the time. And you were so right when you said that it's kind of a oxymoronic that something like this had to be discussed. But then it reminds me of a very old African saying, which says, if the lions had historians of their own, the history of the hunt would be very different. And now with the presence of our own historians, our own people who are not influenced because of one or the other reason, presenting their views, I think the future is very bright and would be a correct perspective of our tradition, our heritage would be put in there. And specifically the youth who need to know about it, are participating in this event as as you've noticed. Now, I open it to discussion. If there is anybody in the audience who will like to pose a question to our panelists, please do so. And if the panelists have anything further to add, you are also free to add. So
I have only one suggestion to make, and that is, Dr. Gyaandeo ji, you have really given Gyan. Wonderful. You lived up to your name, and your name and your dissertation and your wisdom is phenomenal. I'm very honored to be part of this entire process. And I would say that anything else that we want to say, a lot will depend upon what the participants want to hear, because there is so much to talk about, because we Hindus have been, most reticent in talking about ourselves. And most of my American friends, when I talk to them and explain to them where the caste came in, what is Varna, why, like Dr. Saab was mentioning about what we eat, vegetarian, why are we vegetarian? Because Sanathana Dharma doesn't practice or doesn't tell you not to do anything. Because in nature, everything is food for something or somebody at some point in time. So the question here is that we exercise as a choice because we operate at a higher elevated equilibrium of life. That's what makes us human. Do we need to? So I'm not here to question that X is superior to Y. I'm saying why I'm the way I am. So as Dr. Gyaandeo ji was mentioning, is that you have to always learn one of those 5 principles that he talked about. And I always say that knowing what you know, begin to feel what you need to know more. That's the only way you begin to make discoveries and findings. I did that. It happened to me. I proudly say that it's only after coming to America in 1991 that I became a better Hindu. I became a better Indian, and I became a better human. Not necessarily in the same order, but I'm just saying that this is the way it happened to me. That's what I want to say, that ask your questions, and I would urge you to ask questions. Because left to myself, I can talk to you about why caste, why we are the way we are, but engaging is, I would respect if you ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vibhuti ji. I would just simply add that, first of all, I would submit I did not choose my name. So
nor did I.
so it's been a bit of a struggle. And I completely agree. I frequently tell people that, as far as my understanding and application of my religion, I feel if I had stayed in my native environment, it would never have happened. The Bhagjugni never finds out how bright they are if they keep standing in front of the sun.
Correct.
It is only when you are cast away in an area where somebody questions everything you do, and you have the desire to find out, well, yeah, why do I do that? And hopefully you don't throw it all out and try to become something that goes against your inherent nature, but you develop a thirst for knowledge to find out and find the right people. That would be my only advice. In today's, World Wide Web, there's all kinds of information available, but you have to have, like Vibhuti ji alluded to just now, we operate at a higher state of equilibrium. So you have to respect that equilibrium and make the effort to find discerning knowledge, to find those that would be capable of imparting proper knowledge to you.
Thank you.
Prabir ji has a question. Prabir ji, can you please ask the question?
Can I be heard now, Somesh ji?
Yeah, Prabir, go ahead. You can be heard.
Gyaandeo ji, this is a question primarily addressed to you, but both panelists may want to comment. And it's really a 2-part question. One is the concept in our Sanatana Dharma that there are many paths to God and all are equally valid. And the other is this idea of Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam. Are these concepts uniquely Indian in the sense that are they foreign to the Judeo-Christian traditions?
Actually, I believe Vibhuti ji kind of answered that in his earlier discourse when he talked about the difference between religious concepts, Sanatana Dharma as a way of life, and religion and their basis. I believe he had mentioned that religion is based on fear and ignorance. And the religious Sanatana Dharma, the application of religion is based on acceptance and understanding. We have to be very careful when we talk about different religions, in that if we look at the practical applications of any religion, Hinduism included, you will not have to go far to find practices that you may find distasteful and a little bit ashamed of. So that it is really the limitations of humans' understanding of these religious concepts and how they're applied that I feel get called into question. The fault is not with the religious concept nor the precept, but it is with the expression. And I will submit that any religion that develops a system of a church, and I use the term church liberally, I'm not just referring to the Judeo-Christian structures. I will include mosques and mandirs and any temple of any kind. A temple of any kind in any religion very quickly becomes a thinly disguised business. And so it is based on the practices of supporting that business, which unfortunately, my job, and I learned this concept in the distinction between the term Purohit and Pandit. A Purohit is one who performs, it is what in Judeo-Christian concepts would be called a lay priest. One who performs and applies rituals and different performances, whereas a Pandit is really meant to be somebody who is ensconced in the teachings of the Vedas and the different sastras and Upanishads and so on, and can go into philosophical discourse and brings a much deeper and profound depth of understanding to things. And so if you're just concerned with the practical application, the day-to-day application of the religion, then even within Hinduism, my subsistence as a Purohit is based on you not gaining deep spiritual understanding and moksha. My subsistence as a Purohit is based on keeping you fearful and ignorant. That is what I should promote if I want to be a successful Purohit. And if I'm part of a temple, then you become a group of people propounding this fear and ignorance. I need to make you afraid of this Almighty Father, disciplinarian God, who, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, will punish you with A, B, and C. And I have the solution to get you out of those punishments, which is really not how Hinduism functions, nor how the tenets of Hindu philosophy are meant to be applied. And I feel if you delve deeply enough within any religious philosophy, you will find these same tenets. Different people at different time. And really the problem is one of semantics and one of applying words. If we all got together as a group today, and we all decided that this thing that we call blue, we don't like that. It creates problems. And we are going to call it red. And we will all agree that from now on, we are going to call this thing red. And everybody agrees, then that's what it'll be called. Do you think the color itself notices any difference? Will it notice any change? Do you think it matters to the color whether we call it blue or red? It is what it is.
The frequency is not changed by whether you call it blue or red.
Absolutely. And so the idea of Sanatana Dharma being the only one that espouses this concept, I don't think is true. I think if you go within all the other faiths in the depth, you will find the same thing.
No, but Gyaandeo ji, my point was not the way in which the religions are practiced, and both of us know of all the problems with the practice of the Hindu religion. My point was a philosophical one. It seems to me there is an essential difference between saying, this is my way to God, this way is right, and all other ways are wrong, and saying, this is my way to God, this is another way to God, all the ways are equally correct. It's a question of binary logic versus multi-valued logic.
Well, you realize the problem with that question. I can't answer the question because I haven't found God.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
So I can't say that, the way that I am on is going to lead you there. My point was simply that if we are fortunate enough to find God as a philosophical question, I don't think God will care very much how we got there. And so the idea of an expression that says that this is the only way to God is an artificial imposition on a religious concept. And it is one that we brought as humans, not necessarily a limitation of the religious and philosophical concept and teaching.
Vibhuti ji, do you want to address that last point?
Oh, I would attempt to. I do not know I have the answer for that, but what I do know that as a debate and a dialogue and understanding of the issue that Niyogi ji is talking about is that my way is the only way to attain God, is as Dr. Gyaandeo very correctly said, who has seen God? And that's what I ask people who don't believe in my faith and they have their own faith to follow. I say, who has seen God? Nobody. So if seeing is believing, do we believe in God then? Question that is open. I throw the question at that scenario. So where is God? Why hasn't he showed up to address the challenges that nature imposes on us or through its own ways? So my thought process here would be is to recognize one very important fact, that life and death will happen regardless of what religion you belong to. And I sincerely have begun to talk about that when fear drives and ignorance drives religion, belief, some smart aleck created some, God said this to me, so please listen to me or else I will give you the passport to hell or heaven. But as Dr. Gyaandeo ji very rightly said, in our concept, there is no heaven or hell.
There's no heaven.
There is no heaven or hell. Your life, Atma goes away and Atma takes another form depending on exactly what you did. Don't we always say, Jaisi karni vaisi bharni. As you sow, so you will reap. So we do know that our good deeds will result in good consequence. And evil deeds, you will not get by a confession, you go to a passport, you get a passport to go to heaven. So I question that. And I urge all of you to make these inquiries not as a challenge to their belief, but as a seeking an inquiry. I asked this question and I'm very honest about it. I asked them this question. So I commit 72 murders and I go to a confession booth. Will it ensure that I go to, will you issue my passport to heaven or hell? As simple as that. And these are the essential parts to begin Christianity for conversion, for example. There are issues that we are being attacked because I chose the political terminology that we Hindus have become. India has become a happy hunting ground for everybody who doesn't like us. Conversion in the name of democracy, rule of law, freedoms, and we are attacked. And I have begun to question. I have asked this question of my Christian and Muslim friends. And I urge you to make an inquiry. The inquiry is very simple. Is conversion a sin against God's original intent? Conversion, and I make a statement after the question, that in my opinion, conversion is a sin against God's original intent. Because if God wanted me as anything else other than what I am, he would have done it like this, right? Sheila would be satire. Somesh ji would be somebody else, and Gyaandeo ji would be somebody else, right? He didn't. He made me Vibhuti. So when you come to me to ask me to convert to another faith, you are insulting God's original intent, and you are committing sin against God's original desire. We have to begin to assert ourselves and ask these questions in a most Sanatani way, because Sanatana teaches us to make that inquiry. Thank you.
Anybody else? Because we are running short, running out of time. Anybody else there who would like to ask a question?
Sunita ji has a question. If you can unmute yourself and ask the question, Sunita ji.
Sunita?
Hi, namaste ji, everybody. This question is for Dr. Gyaandeo ji. Based on what you said about reincarnation earlier, is it then true that based on our karmic actions, in the common understanding of what heaven and hell is for most people, is that what it is on earth for us then? Heaven and hell is right here? Thank you.
So I will try and condense a 6-hour answer into a few seconds. But in essence, yes. Because we are talking about something that is eternal, that is your Atma. The other arrogance that we commit is that we forget that our consciousness is particular, at least how we understand it, is particular to this existence. So that I don't know what I will become when my soul leaves this mortal coil. But I don't think I will be Gyaandeo anymore. And so for me to think about what trials and tribulations that soul may be undertaking is very, very difficult to conceive. And it leads on to a whole other bunch of concepts that are particularly troubling in Hinduism, in that when we accept God as that all-powerful, omniscient being, you see, we would do well, at least it helps me to just sit a little bit and think about the words that we say when we rattle off these things without a lot of thought into it. All-powerful means simply one thing. There's nothing else that is more powerful. And so instantly the concept of having some evil force has to disappear. There cannot be something else. If you accept and believe in an all-powerful God, there cannot be something that will challenge that power. They just simply can't exist. But it then leads you to the much more difficult position, which is, then why do we have all these terrible things? You're telling me that is all God? Well, yes, it is. So while the Mother Teresa's and Mahatma Gandhi's are God, the Ted Bundy's and all the other, and Hitler's and all these people, that's God too. It is very inconvenient for us, but it is that what Dr. Bhargava said earlier, it is that supreme truth. And so in our working out of our karma, I believe, is what we would roughly term as heaven and hell, which would be when we have happy parts of our lives and when we have suffering in our lives. Again, medicine is helpful to teach you this. You see people with all sorts of terrible medical conditions lying there, and you wonder why. Like, which sort of terrible, unmerciful God would do this to anybody? And so the tremendous amount of suffering that people have to go through, and then our lives are. This is the dualism that exists, right? You only know happiness because at one point you knew sadness. And you only know satiety, you only know what a full belly is because at one time you were starving. If you don't have these things, then the other ones can't exist. So the idea of being happy is very artificial. It means you have to be sad at some point. Hinduism speaks more correctly about the idea of contentment, a santushti, which is expressed in Western philosophy as equanimity. And so having this balanced approach is actually what you're trying to achieve, is what you would hope to experience, and to get away from this idea of the ups and downs of, I'm happy, life is good, oh, this is terrible, my life's a disaster. It seems really boring and mundane, but that's actually where your salvation lies. And so the idea of heaven and hell, I very much feel that we experience that in our lives based on the extent of our unhappiness and happiness. But we create that sense, right? We decide what makes us happy and what makes us unhappy. What is happy and unhappy for one person is very different for another person. If you want to make this serial murderer happy, you let him kill as many people as he wants. But that's not what you and I would think of as happiness.
I would only add one more thing here, is that happiness is famously called as a state of mind, but equanimity and becoming nirvikar is important here, is that you are not impacted and affected by things around you. Your life is good. But what is important here for us to remember, one more thing, is that merely acquisition of knowledge and information is not enough, unless and until we apply it in our life. Just remember one thing in mind, and I'm being very pedestrian. Did anybody here got their driver's license because they had the full knowledge of how the car must be driven? Did anybody become a good swimmer by watching, all the great swimmers take a dive in the pool? Did anybody become a great space flight engineer because they were reading the book? You have to apply it. Knowledge not applied, we all are as good as nothing. That's what is important for me, from my point of view. And that's where the concept of inquiry comes in. We can philosophize anything. The point of the matter, I learned the lesson of Bhagavad Gita, two things which I will share with you, Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. I believe in taking that one key, what the movie says, that one thing that makes a difference. So for me, from Mahabharata, I took that lesson, that appeasement and pandering doesn't work. From Ramayana, I took the lesson of Lakshman Rekha. You have to draw a line this far and no further. And believe it or not, our philosophies have been adopted in movies. When you come to terms with that, then you realize, oh my God, it was there. Enter the Dragon. How many of you have seen that movie? When the arch villain, one of the thugs and thieves, when Mr. Han invites him to join his drug empire, and he kills his friend who refused to do that earlier, he says, there is a line I won't go beyond. He drew a Lakshman Rekha there, right? There are innumerable examples of how our philosophy is accepted, but we are the ones who have not pushed for it. The world is waiting for us. I believe, and I've said this on Jaipur Dialogues every time I've said this, that this is the time for Sanatana Dharma to rule the world. And I don't mean rule the world from the king and the queen perspective. I'm saying as a philosophy, because science and technology is removing the ignorance. And once the ignorance goes, then you know that miracles happen. Miracle is nothing else but absence of science and information and knowledge. So I would put it this way, I will end here, because it's a fabulous conversation to have. And, with the wise wisdom of Gyaandeo and, the batting I do on the cricket field, they're two different things. The batsman doesn't care how the bat was made. He plays with it. I belong to that fraternity. Thank you very much.
I will just interrupt very quickly to say I'm extremely happy that Vibhuti ji is quoting from my favorite movie of all times, City Slickers. That's Jack Palance speaking to Billy Crystal. You have to find the one thing that makes a difference. I make that mandatory viewing for all my residents that come through training with me.
Oh, great. I would take the liberty of saying great minds think alike. So that's all right.
Thank you very much.
Well, I know we would like to continue for a long time, but I can see that our time has, I think we have surpassed the time that was allotted to us. And so thank you very much, both of you. And hopefully we may see you someday in person in Ottawa and have a lively discussion in person. So, namaskar, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. Me particularly, and great meeting Gyanji and Sheila. Continue with your good show.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Dr. Bhargava, real pleasure meeting you, sir, today. Thank you.
As well, thank you all for the tremendous honor and privilege. Dhanyavad.
Thanks to all our panelists for shedding lights on the significance of Sanatana Dharma with their valuable and profound discussion. So now let us move to our next event, which is the photography workshop on Indian culture and heritage. Evidently, photography is the art of capturing images through a camera or a film. The photograph spectrum is extremely wide, ranging from beautiful landscapes to a still raindrop. The educational workshop is based around inspiring others, promoting different aspects of Indian culture and heritage, boosting creative fundamentals and different art forms of India. This workshop is an educational as well as a learning experience for those who are interested in the topic. We know India is a diverse country ranging from beautiful sceneries, temples, monuments, architecture, and arts. With India's historical heritage and multicultural dynamics, there are an abundance of memories waiting to be captured. We have Mr. Raghavendra Rampur of R Square Pics. He started photography as a hobby, but quickly grew into business for his quality work and demand. He has experience of 12 years in photography. He is a renowned photographer and videographer in Ottawa. He has also done several TV shows for popular TV channels. He was also featured many times in CBC and CTV Ottawa, Photo of the Day, Ottawa Tourism website, and Instagram Birds article and Ottawa Bird Strategy by Safe Wings Ottawa. He has honorable mentions in Canadian Wildlife Federation monthly photo contest to his credit. Recently, his R Square Pics photography also won the first place by the Community Votes Ottawa 2021. We congratulate Raghavendra sir and welcome him.
Hello, bonjour, namaskar. Welcome to the Great India Festival. Myself Raghavendra Rampur, photographer by passion, software engineer by profession. Today I'm here to do the photography workshop on Indian heritage and culture. Welcome all. Key factors involved in the photography, I've listed them here. First one being very important is the composition involved. This has a lot of factors, how you actually compose the image, the light involved, the angle, the background and the foreground, all other aspects. So it definitely, I think it talks, it touches upon the next bullet, which is being adventurous and creative, which matters a lot. I think the weather, the position or the angle you take the picture and the environment involved plays a lot of important role in there. And of course it is left to photographer that I suggest, like, don't hesitate to experiment. If sometimes you get into the water, you lie down to take a picture. It could be an art building or a huge famous architectural or historical heritage structure. You may want to show the grandeur of that architecture of that building. So you may want to kind of change the angle, sit down, lie down. So those are some which I meant don't hesitate to experiment. Of course, you break the rules. That's what I suggest, because the one of the key rule in the photography is to let the light fall on the subject. You don't have to follow that all the time, because sometimes you can shoot against the light. You get beautiful photographs as well. I think silhouettes are made from that as well, but there are a lot of other aspects involved. You will see them in my photographs, which I'm going to showcase in my next slides. The last one, which is very important for me, which I follow, is spend more time with the camera, not in front of the computer. What I mean there is less of editing using Photoshop or Lightroom or any other tools. So I try to get the photograph completely done through the camera. Of course, you know the camera settings and every aspects, and you master them, and you experiment, of course, but then you need a bit of post-processing after, which I try to keep it minimal. Okay, that's all on the key factors. Let's move on to seeing some of the photos I've taken on Indian heritage and culture, and explanation on what they are, and how I kind of visualize or compose those images. Okay, here comes the first picture which I'm showcasing here. So this was photographs in TGF event itself. It was then called Festival of India in 2017. This is called Chow Dance. So this was performed by Binapani Rupchand Dance Academy in 2017. The beauty of this dance is, and it definitely shows in the culture, Indian culture, that it's vibrant, colorful. So when I was trying to compose this picture, I was trying to get the so first thing is the character in this. This is Ravana, which is one of the character from Ramayana, which is depicted here in the Chow dance, which they performed on the one of the aspects of Ramayana they did. So the way Ravana was performing, so I wanted to capture the vibrancy and the 10 heads which Ravana carries performing, and the makeup or the other accessories they used is amazing to visualize. So this was taken an angle when the performer was almost on this at the end of the stage performing and about to jump. I wanted to capture the colors and beauty involved. Of course, as you see, the background is dark, so I had to position myself so that I don't get any distractions at the background. So this, of course, that's what I mentioned about experimenting and be adventurous and moving around. There will, of course, there are a lot of people on the the audience. In the audience, I had to move around and get this angle to get this beautiful photograph. Right, this photograph is a little girl performing Indian folk dance. So this was photographed in a community event. As you see from this previous photograph as well as this one, the background is completely dark. That is another aspect where you, as a photographer, bringing your creativity and trying to be an angle where you get an angle where you don't get a lot of distractions in the photograph background. So this was on the stage. Of course, there were 3 to 4 girls along with this young girl performing, and I had to get a shot where she was in a dance position and the light is right. This is where I was kind of mentioning of the creativity and being experimental doesn't matter. decorating a Parvati idol, and this was for the special occasion. It was called Shiva Parvati Kalyanam Utsav. That means Shiva and Parvati. Shiva is god, Indian great god, and Parvati is his wife, and Kalyan Mahotsav is the marriage ceremony. So every year on an auspicious day, on a particular day, they do this Shiva Parvati Kalyan Mahotsav. A lot of deities attend this, and in preparation for the special puja, they do um, decorate the idols with jewelry, dresses. As you see in this, you can see that green color sari for the idol, and as well as the jewelries which all the ladies decorating the idol. On the left side, which is blurred, is Shiva's idol, which is already decorated. But this is one of the angle where this is again the experimenting and creativity comes in the picture. When the event is going on, photographers has to be on the constant move, because there are a lot of people doing their duty, like as you see the decorating the idol, but you need to find an angle or a position where you get a good shot, or what, or the composition you wanted to bring in the photograph. So this is an angle where you see the ladies hands, which of course they are decorating the idol with all the jewelry and the dresses. So this is one of the shot which is very difficult to shoot in the event, because a lot of people moving around, but of course as a photographer you need to be focused on your job and get the most beautiful moments or photographs which we can capture. So I think it is left definitely to the wildest imagination of photographer, how she wants to get the photograph, but this is one of the angle as well. Alright, the next photograph I have here is a performer performing a Bharatanatyam dance, which is one of the traditional Indian classical dance. This was again photographed in TGF 2017. So Bharatanatyam is also called Sadhiratam, and it's a major form of Indian classical dance that's originated in southern part of India, Tamil Nadu. It has flourished in temples and courts of southern India since ancient times. It's very famous nowadays. There are a lot of performers across the world who's learning, and it's one of the beautiful dance to watch. So in this photograph, again, as you see, the performers are on the stage, and the light on the and an angle are the different forms or the dance steps involved in Bharatanatyam. All I think you need to be at the right moment. You need to click the picture to capture each move in the dance. This is one of them where the performer is performing the Bharatanatyam, and of course where she stands and the light and an angle does matter to capture the entirety of that specific step in the dance. I tried to minimize in an angle to get as much as less distraction in the background. As you see, there are lights and some decorations at the background, but the focus of this photograph is the performer and the expressions and her dress and her ornaments and her movements and the body posture involved, which actually depicts the beautiful Bharatanatyam dance, which is one of the famous Indian classical dance. Okay, this photograph is capturing the celebration, which is Ganesha festival, is one of the famous festival in Hindu culture in India, and of course across the world. Hindus do celebrate that. In this picture, as you see, there are idols Ganesha, but the focus is on another idol which is called Gauri. Gauri is mother of Ganesha, who gave birth to Ganesha. So during the Ganesha festival in India, you have these idols made out of clay are sold in the market for festive celebrations, where people come in and buy those idols on the festive day and perform the special pujas and celebrate the Ganesha festival. At the end of the day, or the specified number of days, they do let these idols into the water, submerged into the water. That's a tradition. So in this picture, this was in the market where all the idols were kept on the table, and it was a beautiful visual for the eyes. The focus being the Gauri idol, and as you see one Ganesha around and in the background. So I wanted to capture the festive mood of this Ganesha festival. This is my next photograph, which is an young woman in a traditional Indian silk saree holding diya or a lamp, celebrating Diwali festival on the occasion of Diwali. Diwali is also called Deepavali in many other languages, Indian languages. As many of you know, Diwali is Festival of Lights, a biggest Hindu festival celebrated by Hindus across the world, and it's a celebration of um, winning of light over dark, good over evil. So there are a lot of stories behind it, why Diwali is celebrated. So let's talk about the photograph. I wanted to photograph an young woman with celebrative or a festive mood on the occasion of Diwali. So she, in a vibrant, colorful Indian silk saree, holding diya, showcasing the beauty of Diwali festival and Indian traditional wear. So this was photographed in a house, as you see at the background. The lights are off and there is enough light on her and showcasing her Indian attire, sari, also jewelry, and the lamp in her hand, and the smile showcasing her happiness while celebrating the Diwali festival. Okay, this photograph is called Yakshagana performance. Yakshagana is a traditional theatre developed in Dakshin Kannada, Udupi, Uttar Kannada, Shimoga, and western parts of Chikmagalur districts in Karnataka state of India, and also in Kasaragod district in Kerala state, which combines the dance, music, dialogue, costume, makeup, and stage techniques with a unique style and form. It's very beautiful performance or a dance to watch. They perform Ramayana, Mahabharata episodes with the different Yakshagana steps, styles involved. Very vibrant costume, makeup, and a lot goes behind getting ready for the performance. A lot of effort, hours together of makeup and costume, and the performance, and the performers put in a lot of effort with the costume on and performing and being in the character. So that's Yakshagana. I think many Karnataka and people from Karnataka and Kerala from southern part of India understand how beautiful this dance is and performances are. Let's talk about the photograph. This was in one of the community event where the performance was staged, and performance was arranged and it was performed. This is one of the character which is part of Ramayana, where the character is standing, as you see the performer delivering a dialogue. So wanted to get the the beauty of this character, and with the Yakshagana attire and all the ornaments and style showing there. Again, as you see how I composed it, trying to kind of avoid the distractions and an angle. Of course, I had to move around to make sure it actually captured the uniqueness and beauty of this character in Yakshagana. So this is part of Indian culture as well. The next photograph here actually depicts an Indian farmer plowing the field in a traditional way. So this is a rural village model installation at a lake in Jekkur, Bangalore city in India. So the rural village model showing every aspect of village life and how it was. So in this photograph, as you see the farmer plowing the field in a traditional way, and this I wanted to capture that the traditional way of plowing and an angle where farmers in action, and you can see the bowls in the picture as well, and the tool he's using. Of course, these are the depictions, not the real one. It's a model, easy to capture, but this shows the way it was done in a tradition. The plowing the field by the farmers earlier days. Of course, now with industrialization, there's a lot of technology and machinery involved nowadays, but this is something which was done earlier. There could be places where it is still being done in India and other countries as well, some of the countries, but this actually shows the powerful, or the way the Indian farmer was plowing the field. While photographing, because this is entire village, but this aspect I wanted to capture only this part, so I had to kind of eliminate others. So I had to move around in an angle at a corner of this is a lake, near the lake park, and where I wanted to capture only those. And as I said, this is a village model, so there are a lot of other things going on around and background. As you see in the background, it's a kind of they're showing the market as well, or the village model. So to capture this, you need to make sure that the subjects are in focus. So that is where you see the bulls is using, the farmer is using, and the farmer in action, and the tool plow is using to plow the field. So my next photograph here is Dasara doll festive display, which is also called Dasara Gombe Habba. Dasara is one of the India's festival celebrated during October time period. Of course, it is according to the Hindu calendar. There is a reason why it was celebrated. There are many stories behind it when you go to Ramayana or Mahabharata, especially Mahabharata. So Dasara Gombe is a doll. So as you see in the pictures, there are a lot of different dolls being pictured, or you could call the miniatures of the instruments, or the gods, or the idols, statues, animals. So the family who follows this display every year on year collect these over a period and assemble and display it during that Dasara festival. So this was in one of the family's house here in Ottawa, showcasing the Indian festival, which is Kombe Haba, is a traditional festival display of dolls and figurines in India, and it is celebrated by enthusiastically during Dasara. Many of the Indian families here in Ottawa, and of course across the world, in India as well, celebrate this. There are, depending on how big the collection is, the display will be accordingly of the same size, and it actually shows the vibrancy and different culture of India, and the idols or the miniature figurines involved will tell you a different story, or an action involved. So it varies across. About the photograph, as you see as a whole, I wanted to capture the grandeur and of the display, making sure everything else, everything is captured, all the figurines are in focus and shown. Of course, in the forefront at the bottom, you see all those all those puja materials at the bottom placed for performing the puja, but all the figurines which are actually displayed on the steps. In the tradition, in the Indian tradition, it was always enthusiasm during the younger days to visit each house. Of course, friends and families house, where what to understand and see what's their collection is, and it actually depicts the happiness and festive mood among the kids as well as the adults and elder people as well, who are involved in the decorations and display, and also passing on this tradition to the younger generations. So this is part of the culture in India. So this photograph is again Yakshagana performance. The role played by this performer is Hanuman, is part of the Ramayana epic. This is a part of the Yakshagana which I explained earlier, is a South Indian dance, famous dance. So about the photograph, the Hanuman in the depiction was sitting down and giving an expression as a part of the play. So this, I composed it to capture that act of Hanuman and showcasing his Yakshagana the role, as well as the costume, the makeup. As you see, the Hanuman is monkey god, as if many of you know the Ramayana, and then that actually displays. So again, you see in the photograph, what it matters is the angle and the background. Another aspect which I captured here is the reflection on the floor, because Hanuman is sitting down, so you see a bit of reflection on the floor, and which actually is part of the photographs when I composed it. This photograph is showing a temple, which is Shri.Subramanya temple. This is Subramanya is a place in Karnataka in India. Subramanya is one among the 7 holy places created by Parashuram. As you see in the photograph, I wanted to capture the grandeur of the temple architecture. As I mentioned about the environment aspect, this was photographed during the monsoon season in India. So you see the clouds behind, a bit of clouds, and it is a gloomy day with not much light. So that is where I believe, with an experience and a photographic knowledge and on how to use the camera, And another aspect to bring it to your notice is the angle I took this picture is sitting down. It is at the floor level where it can show the architecture and grandeur of the temple, and even on the gloomy day, as you see the way the temple is showing up, it's in a white marble, and it is showing the beauty of the place and the temple here. This next photograph depicting the heritage of India. This is a temple, Sri Sringeri Sharada Peetham, Sringeri, Karnataka in India. Sringeri is also called as Sri Kshetra Sringeri, is a hill town and a taluk headquarters located in Chikmagalur district in the Indian state of Karnataka. It is the site of the first Matha. It was established by Adi Shankara, Hindu theologian and exponent of Advaita Vedanta philosophy. And this was in 88th century CE. And as you see the temple, it's more colorful and showing the intricate details there. Also, this was photographed on the in the monsoon season in India. As you see, the skies are gloomy, and the angle in which it was taken to show the grandeur of the architecture and the heritage of India in this temple. So this next photograph is a Sacred Heart Cathedral. This is in Shivamogga, a place in Karnataka state in India. And this is the second largest church in India, the Sacred Heart Church. It's a fine example of architecture marvel of Shivamogga. It is also it's a Catholic church spread over an 18,000 square feet, and structure of the church is quite incredibly built in Roman and Gothic styles, and houses a big prayer hall with a huge space of 5,000 people. However, a statue of Jesus is the salient feature of church, attracting people in the large numbers. It is a beautiful place to visit in Shivamogga. About the photograph, of course, to show the grand architecture of this church and in the entirety, I had to position in an angle to capture the entire church and how it is architectured, and again with the not a lot of light, because it is photographed during the monsoon season. As you see the clouds behind showing, and also a bit of while composing, I bit of kind of left space at the front of the church, which is actually showing the grand entrance pathway to this church. It's a beautiful place to visit. So this next photograph showing Rangoli. Rangoli is an art form originating in Indian subcontinent in which patterns are created on the floor or maybe a table lamp using materials such as powdered limestone, red ochre, dry rice flour, colored sand or quartz powder, or use flower petals and colored rocks as well. It's an everyday practice in Hindu households. However, the colors are preferred during festivals and other important celebrations as it's time consuming. Rangoli are usually made during Diwali, Tihar, Onam, Pongal, Sankranti, and other Hindu festivals in the Indian subcontinent, and are most often made during Diwali. Designs are passed from one generation to the next, keeping both the art form and the tradition alive. As you see in the photograph, what captures the grand colors and the beauty of this Rangoli art, which was actually on the floor. It gives a beautiful, colorful and vibrant picture to see and enjoy the beauty of it. I hope you all enjoyed the session today. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Raghavendra sir for providing this workshop on the wide range of photography that portrays Indian practices and festivals through capturing them from his lens. So thank you, Raghavendra sir, for this great opportunity. Now we have come to the end of the Great India Festival events for today's morning session. Now again, I would like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors and partners for their generous contributions. Thanks to our festival partners, Government of Canada, Government of Ontario, City of Ottawa, High Commission of India, Indian Council for Cultural Relations. Thanks to our gold sponsors, Phoenix Homes and Kilika IT Solutions. Thanks to our cuisine partners, Thali, Coconut Lagoon, and Curry Kebab House. Thanks to our cultural partners, Saraswati Society of Dance and Music and Canadian Center for Mindful Habitats. Our community partner, Indo-Canadian Community Center. And lastly, I thank to our media partners, CBC Ottawa and CKCU FM 93.1. So the Great India Festival has served to provide a wide coverage on Indian cultural and heritage today. And as usual, with all the events until today. We thank Mr. Dheeraj Agarwal and Aruvita Agarwal for providing a divine start today by lighting the lamp. Then we had Chanting for Balance from Mekhala Desikachar, who introduced us to the significance of chanting in our daily lives and how profoundly it affects and it makes us a better person and gives a holistic life to us. We then had a discussion with Dr. Kishore, Kumar and Sarika Shetty, who showed us Ayurveda is not only a medicinal value, but also that Ayurveda is a way of life. And we then had a panel discussion on important features of Sanathana Dharma values for a multicultural society. Lastly, we had a beautiful photography workshop by Raghavendra sir. We thank all the presenters and participants today for joining us. And we look forward to see you again at 6 p.m. today for our events in the evening session. Thank you all.